So we're going to kind of talk through complete spine boarding. And so what we're going to do is we're going to show somebody with full equipment, and we've already taken the jersey off. So they're going to come in, and just as we talked about before, they're going to make sure that they get this face mask off right away because they do not know what could be wrong. So they're going to get the face mask starting with the bottom, and this is a quick release, so you can see them come in with the tool to be able to clip the helmet off. They're going to unstrap or have cut the shoulder pads, because remember we don't have the rip cord that we showed a little bit earlier. And then what they're going to do is they're going to cut the strings of the shoulder pads so they can get these off. So you can see somebody's going to come in and step down and squat down. This is because, as you can see, the athletic trainer is a little bit shorter. So in order for her to get in and get a good grasp of the athlete's head, she needed to straddle the patient very carefully. They're going to pop the cheek pads off very carefully. And if necessary, sometimes you can use a tongue depressor. That's a good way to help get them out if you're having issues at all. So as you can see, they're doing a really good job stabilizing the patient's head. And now that that is on, what they will do is the person at the head will assist with taking off the equipment. So since the person who's straddling is helping, they're kind of getting the shoulder pads and helmet off, slowly lowering her to the ground to get her back into spinal neutral, and then the person at the head is taking back over. Now at this point they go into the traditional 8+ lift that we've talked about before. So what they're going to do is they're going to slowly move her arms and legs together, interlock arms, and perform the lift on the count of 3 at 1, 2, 3 lift to the height of where the athletic trainer at the top says to lower it. And then 1, 2, 3 lower is what they did. At this point they will then continue to strap her on while getting the cervical collar on. Once the cervical collar's on, they're then going to get the blocks in and get one on each side, making sure that the athletic trainer at the head has good stabilization while this process is occurring. And then the next process of what they will do is they will then either tape or secure with straps the foam blocks down to the spine board. We're going to talk about pole vaulting now and the landing pad and the uniqueness of having the spine board on this. So what you're going to see first is you're going to see the athletic trainer come out to the patient, and they asked him if they're okay and told them not to move. You can see that he's taking his time to get to hold the patient into C-spine, and this is for a few different reasons. You can see that the pad has a lot of give to it, so if he were to run out there and start jumping around or moving, he's going to cause additional motion and problems for the patient. When the athletic trainers come out, they're going to come out one by one and get on the pad singly. That way there's not a ton of motion being possible. So we talked earlier, if a patient is prone, according to literature, the best thing to do is a prone log roll push. Well, if you look at how the patient is stabilized, pushing him onto the spine board is not possible at this point. They would have to be crammed up and it just wouldn't work very well. So this is where they use their clinical judgment to use the prone log roll pull. You can see the athletic trainer on the bottom, and she is having a very important role here that you may not realize at the time. So what she is doing, the patient is at about a 45-degree angle, and if she was not there to stabilize him, he would keep slipping down. So she is actually stabilizing his feet and helping actually hold him up and to make sure that not only him, but the board doesn't fall down. So you can see that it's kind of hard. She's in the actual pit, which is about a foot down, and she's there stabilizing the patient. So right now as the board is rolling, she is having a pretty secure time of having to keep that down and not fall down into that pit more. So now that they've got the patient almost onto the spine board, they then do a slight V down and over. Just because of where the patient is, they had to go over. They couldn't really slide the patient down more and keep the board up. So this is something that you're going to have to think about clinically as you're doing it, and think on your feet, as well as practice worst case scenarios. So at this point, they're strapping the patient in, and they wanted to make sure that they got him strapped in first, so that way no motion happened, and the person at the bottom then only has to stabilize the board, which is making it a lot easier to keep him secure. At this point, too, they're putting the C-collar on to keep the patient secure, and then what they're going to do is they're going to then put the blocks on. And as you can see, when they're moving, no person is moving more than one at a time. And this is to just ensure the least amount of motion happening as a result of motion on the pad. So as they get the last bit of the blocks in, they're then going to make sure that this is secured down. And whether you have tape or the straps, again, it's just making sure that the blocks stay in place. And one thing important about this, and we're going to show it here shortly, is how to get the patient and lift them and move them here. So whenever a patient is at an angle, and you can still see he's at about a 45-degree angle, but we have his head stabilized, so we know that that's the number one priority. What they're going to have to do is they're going to have to make sure that they move the patient as vertical as possible, as quickly as possible. So once they're strapped on, the person that is stabilizing the foot will then be the main base of support to lift the bottom. And this is just because you know that his feet are at a lower level. So we have another person coming down to assist just because of the angle. And what they're going to do is they're actually going to lift the patient to 180 degrees. And if you notice, the three people on top are going to continue being in a squatted position. They have to be mindful of the fact that there's about a 3-foot drop base from the pad down into the bottom of where the pole will go. And so you can see the person at the head is slowly moving his way down, carefully walking in, and then we'll be able to take the patient and transport them. So today, to kind of wrap things up, what I want to talk about is, as we just said, continuing education. Seek out your weakness, find areas, whether this be within athletic training, within spine boarding. Take this information home and go practice it. As I said before, unfortunately, with this being a web presentation, the lab wasn't a possibility. But get together with coworkers and with athletic training students and go over spine boarding. This isn't a one and done thing. This is something that you'll want to continue to do every few months to continue to practice. Because remember, the skills that we don't practice, we lose. New research will continue to come out. So we talked about how the NATA position statement was a great way to be able to bring all the research that has been done together. But remember, that is not all inclusive and it is merely a guideline. More information has continued to come out, so keep a search on new ways of spine boarding, of new techniques, and as we showed a little bit about new equipment that will continue to come out. So we talked about airway management during spine boarding and how important this is. So we know that in order to properly bag valve mask a person, a face mask can't be on, and that's something that we talked about a little bit earlier. If we take the face mask off and the chin strap off, we have to take the helmet off. And so then you're left with the decision of the shoulder pads. So continue to make a decision within yourself what you will or won't do for this athlete. And then the last thing is the optimal techniques based on patient positioning. So we know that the 8+ lift is better than log roll, but that does require 8 people to be there. You may not have that availability wherever you're at. But just remember that serious injury will occur if managed improperly. And I know we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but I can't help but stress it again, that if these techniques are not done properly, the skills are not caught up, and we're not using the best and newest evidence possible, we may be hurting our patients. I'd like to thank you today for joining us in this instructional video. As I said before, my name is Beth Neal, and I am one of the instructors at Indiana State University. Please do not hesitate to contact me. I've put my email address listed below if you have any comments, questions, or concerns. Thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed this and learned a lot.